Welcome to UV Unwrapping. In this video you will understand what unwrapping actually is. You'll be learning about seams and what they do and what they are. We'll be seeing the default unwrapping options in Blender. And then finally, just a reminder, remember a UV map is a projection of a 3D mesh onto a 2D image. So why do we unwrap? Well, unwrapping gives us control over any maps we want to place on our model, whether that be a diffuse map or a texture or a bump map. Anything that we want, it gives us control over where it is on our model and how it looks. And this is simply because it maps, that's where the word comes from, it maps the mesh coordinates to the image. Now it is essential when using assets outside of Blender, so if you've made something in Blender and you have not created the necessary images, the necessary maps, you cannot reconstruct your model in other programs. Whereas in Blender, it may remember how you've put things and use its internal wizardry to make sure everything looks okay. So other reasons for unwrapping, well, unwrapping isn't really necessary to apply maps to a mesh in Blender. However, you can end up with undesirable results, which can actually work out in your favour sometimes, but not always. We can let Blender guess, and I say guess because we have some controls how it applies a map. However, if you do want control over how something looks, it is essential. So let's have a look at a basic cube. Now there are lots of ways you can unwrap this, i.e. if you were to tear it apart, how could you do so? Now of course the rule is very simple. When you are tearing it apart, it has to be along an edge or a seam. Okay, so let's have a look at a standard way of unwrapping a cube. As you can see, the cube itself becomes something like this. And if you've ever made a cube before, perhaps out of cardboard, when you were younger, I know I certainly did, I put tabs on it and stuck it together and made buildings. Very, very fun. But that was the base 2D object that I would start with, and I folded it up to make a cube. So now we've got a rough idea of what an unwrap looks like. Let's go play with it now and hop straight on over into Blender. Okay, so what I'd like you to do here is open up a brand new Blender file. We're going to play with a cube. So make sure you've saved your work and then go ahead and open up a new Blender file. And lo and behold, we've got a cube in front of it. And I'm just going to lift it up slightly and whiz around it very quickly and see what's going on. Okay, so we've got a cube here, and well, how do we unwrap it? What do we do? Well, we need to be in edit mode in order to unwrap, and we need the image editor open as well. So I'm just going to adjust my windows here. I'm going to pull the outliner and properties pane just out a little, and I'm going to change the properties pane here to a image editor. UV image editor just here. Okay. Now we haven't got an image on there yet, but that doesn't matter because all we're going to do is see what the unwraps look like. So you will need to be in edit mode whenever you unwrap anything, and you need to tell Blender what you want to unwrap. So you need to select everything. If you only have one thing selected, even just a vertex, you will unwrap that vertex. I don't know what that looks like, but it probably doesn't help you at all. In fact, it will just be a dot, because that's what a vertex is. Anyway, go ahead and select your entire cube. Then we go down to the mesh menu, and it's a mesh operation that we want to do. And we can see here UV unwrap, and the shortcut for it is U, and it gives us all of these various options. I'm not going to go through them all right now. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory. Some of them are, well, they've got particular uses, and we're not going to go into them at this moment in the course because it won't be applicable. But let's just hit the top one, unwrap, and see what happens. Well, that doesn't help us at all. It's literally just plonked all of these on top of one another. If we look at the image editor, we've got just an orange square, and that's no good for us. So let's try the next option down. So I've hit U, and I'm going to do a smart UV project. I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to click OK. And here's another way of unwrapping a cube. And that's perfectly good. We could use that within Blender to put images on the surface if we wanted to. So what happens if we want some more control over how this is being cut up? Well, we need to do what's called marking seams, and that is an edge operation. So we need to be in edge mode. Now if we go and select an edge along here, and either go to the mesh menu and go to edges, just down here, and mark a seam, or you can use the shortcut keys Control and E for edge menu, and we've got mark seam here as well. Now if we mark that as a seam and then select the entire model again and just go and unwrap, well, that doesn't help because we haven't cut it up at all yet. In fact, we get a much more different view than we had before. We just end up with a series of vertices in a line, which is still no good to us. So let's go ahead and add some more cuts to this. So I'm imagining cutting up the T shape that we had before. So I'm going to mark those two as a, where is it there? Mark seam. And I'm going to cut across here, and I'm going to mark that as a seam. And then I'm going to come around this side. So it's almost like two C's, the letter C, a very square letter C, on either side, with a line connecting them. And these are basically the cuts. We're now telling Blender how to cut up our mesh. And let's mark those seams there. So now we've got what essentially will be the same as we had on the first image, where we had the cross type shape or the T type shape. If we go and select everything now and go and unwrap, and the shortcut key again is U for unwrap, very useful. And click on unwrap. Let's see what we get here. Well, we're almost there. We've got an interesting unwrap going on here. It's not quite as I would have expected it to be. In fact, if you notice, I think I might have clicked the wrong thing. This here is pink or red in colour, and this one's blue. I might have inadvertently, whilst not watching the screen, hit mark sharp rather than mark seam. They're two different things, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to clear the sharp there and just try that again, and this time do mark seam, select our entire model and unwrap, and let's see what happens. Aha! So we've told Blender how to unwrap this cube, and lo and behold, we've got the T shape that I was aiming for, because I've told it which edges to cut along and open up our model. Brilliant. So, armed with that knowledge, there's a challenge waiting for you guys. I would like you to UV unwrap the new pillar we've made. So go ahead and unwrap your pillar. Do it manually with seams and just the unwrap option. Unwrap all of your sections if you've made the pillar with multiple sections. Now, a few tips for unwrapping. On the generated unwrap, so you've got, when we unwrapped the cube a moment ago, it produced a T-type shape. Would you know where you were on the model? Now, if you can't work that out, if it's suddenly unwrapped into a million pieces, then the answer is you've not done a good unwrap. It needs to be clear as to where parts are. And pick your seams carefully. Now, there is no right or wrong here, but there is an easy to work with later and a nightmare level. So, pause the video now and go ahead and unwrap your pillars. Okay guys, welcome back. Let's go unwrap some pillars over in Blender. Okay, so back over in Blender, let's go ahead and open up the Gothic church that we're working on. And I'm going to hop to the 3D view. And first of all, I'm going to work with just my just the pillars here. So let's focus in on one part. Let's start with the base. And I just want to hide everything else but it with Shift and H. And, well, let's focus on the one that we want to focus on. It's going to do all of them. I'm just going to hide the modifier at the moment. So the multi-res doesn't matter because when we hop into edit mode it will disappear. So let's hide the array and the mirror, then we can focus on our part itself. So I'm going to hop straight on over into edit mode and decide where I'm going to be chopping this thing up. So I'm definitely going to chop off the bottom, so I've got a circle by itself. So let's go ahead and select that around the bottom there, and Control and E, select Mark Seam. Okay, that's the first one done. And then we've got this top circle around the top. That's why it's got top circle, I suppose. And we're going to mark that seam there. And then we just want something along here, joining those two seams up, or a seam to the seams. Seems a bit crazy to me. And mark seam. Right, let's see how that looks when we unwrap it. So let's select everything and unwrap. I'm going to need a UV image editor to see what's happened. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I can identify that as the bottom, that as the top, and that as the side. And the most important thing is I know exactly where it is. So those seams there, it is kind of important sometimes where you put the seam. But considering this is something I can walk all the way around, at this point in time it really doesn't matter. And that should be quite easy to align anyway. If not, we can always adjust it later on. So that's that item done, and so it's got its own UV map here. So let's go ahead and go back to the outliner. I could really do with more space on my screen. There's outliner. And let's go to the pillar section. And on that, I'm going to pillar section array. I'm going to get rid of that, so I'm only looking at that. And this is going to be very similar to the other one. So I'm just going to zoom in to the appropriate locations and select the edge loop around the top. There is only one edge going down, and select the edge loop around the bottom and mark them as seams. And then select everything, unwrap, and let's see how that looks. So let's switch this to the UV image editor. Keep the outliner open for the moment, it's quite useful. And that's another unwrap done. Now don't worry, we've got the other one still there. If we were to go and, I suppose, unlock the base as well, so the pillar base is there. When we select the pillar base and go into edit mode, it goes to that UV map. So it's still there, no problems. Okay, so let's go ahead and focus on the top. Okay, so we've got our... Ooh, let's just hide the rest of these. Go into the properties pane, turn off the array with those so we can focus on it. Probably the mirror as well. I'm not turning it off, sorry, I'm just hiding it from view. Okay, so this is a more complicated shape, so this is going to probably take a couple of attempts to get right. I'm going to do a very similar thing as I did before, but I may want to cut it into different sections. Those menus keep flipping up and down. Very confusing for me. So I'm going to hop into edit mode, and I'm definitely going to have this bottom edge loop here as a seam. Now the question is whether or not I have a seam going around here as well. I'm just going to see how it looks. So I'm going to go up to here, and well, let's go all the way to the top and see what that looks like. So that's not going to do an edge loop. I'm going to have to select all four edges there and mark them as a seam. So that's also marked as a seam, and I'm just going to go ahead and join it on a corner. I figure that's probably the best place, or better place than any. Just going down there, 1, 2, 3. Now I could select edge loop going down as well. It's entirely up to you, but I would have to remember to remove the ones on the bottom, otherwise it would divide it up in a very weird manner. So let's select everything there and unwrap that and see how that looks. Okay, that looks pretty good. I can see that's the top and that's the bottom bit, and this is going up from here upwards. Now I am just going to try adding a seam in here. I don't know if it's going to have any effect or not, but it might make this unwrap just a little neater. And again, this is something you can play with. Wait, is that any neater? I'm not sure. Is it any less confusing? No. Are there lots of parts there now? Maybe. So either or, I'm probably happy with it all as one mesh at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead, select that edge loop again, and this time clear the seam. So there we go, clear seam. select everything and unwrap, and there we go, we're back to this. So we've got 3 unwrapped sections of our pillar. Please share your unwraps in the discussions, and I will see you guys in the next lecture. Take care.